In a small village in Poland, in the year 1905, a child was born who would one day become the apostle of Divine Mercy. This girl, Helena Kowalska, was the third of 10 children in a humble farming family. From the very beginning, there was something about Helena that set her apart. Even as a child, she displayed an unusual piety and sensitivity to the presence of God. She was known for her quiet demeanor, attentiveness during prayer, and her deep compassion for the poor. As a young girl, Helena felt a stirring in her heart, an unexplainable call to a life dedicated entirely to God. But like many of the great saints, her path to this divine mission would not be without trials. Her family, though deeply Catholic, struggled financially, and Helena was expected to help support them. Instead of immediately following her calling, she worked as a domestic servant to provide for her family, pushing aside her desire to enter religious life. At the age of 7, Helena experienced her first sense of vocation during a parish procession. While gazing upon the Eucharist, she felt a profound longing to belong entirely to Jesus. Yet, she did not act on this impulse right away. It wasn't until years later, when she was at a dance with her sister, that her life would take a dramatic turn. In the midst of the festivities, Helena saw a vision of the suffering Christ, asking her, "How long will you keep putting me off?" It was a moment of reckoning that changed everything. Before continuing with this video, I would like to invite you to reflect with us on our spiritual life as Catholics. Many times, in the hustle and bustle of everyday life, we set prayer aside, even though we know how important it is for our spiritual life. With this in mind, I have created an ebook called Prayer Routine for Catholics. In it, I share simple and effective ways to integrate prayer into your daily life, bringing more serenity and closeness to God. This material is a valuable companion for those who wish to live their faith more intensely and consistently. The link to the ebook is in the first comment of this video. Click the link and receive your ebook right now. May God bless you. Overcome by the vision, Helena left the dance immediately, going to the nearest church to seek guidance. She prayed fervently, pleading with God to reveal His will. There, she felt the undeniable call to enter religious life. The next morning, she told her parents of her decision to join a convent. Her mother, however, was heartbroken, fearing the loss of her daughter. Her father was more understanding but reminded her that they could not afford to support her financially in such a decision. Despite the obstacles, Helena was resolute. She left her home and traveled to Warsaw, knocking on the doors of various convents, hoping to be accepted. It wasn't an easy journey. Many convents turned her away due to her lack of education and dowry. But Helena's trust in God was unwavering. Finally, she was accepted by the Congregation of the Sisters of Our Lady of Mercy in 1925, and at the age of 20, she entered the novitiate. It was then that she took the name Sister Maria Faustina of the Blessed Sacrament. Sister Faustina's early years in the convent were filled with ordinary tasks. She worked in the kitchen, the garden, and as a porter. Though her duties were humble, her interior life was anything but. She began to experience profound mystical visions and locutions, often seeing Christ Himself. These experiences, though private, stirred within her a great love for souls and a desire to make known the depth of God's mercy. Yet, she kept these encounters mostly to herself, sharing them only with her spiritual director. In 1931, the most significant vision of her life occurred. While in her cell, Sister Faustina saw Jesus dressed in a white garment, with His right hand raised in blessing, and His left hand touching His heart, from which emanated 2 rays of light, one red, symbolizing blood, and the other pale, symbolizing water. Jesus spoke to her, "Paint an image according to the pattern you see, with the signature, Jesus, I trust in you." This moment marked the beginning of her mission as the Apostle of Divine Mercy. At first, Faustina struggled with this command. She had no artistic ability and felt unworthy of such a mission. But Christ reassured her, promising His help and guidance. Under the direction of her confessor, Blessed Michael Sopoćko, she commissioned the painting of the Divine Mercy image, which would eventually become a worldwide devotion. This image, depicting the merciful heart of Jesus, would serve as a powerful reminder of God's infinite love and forgiveness. Alongside the image, Faustina received another instruction from the Lord, the establishment of the Feast of Divine Mercy. Jesus revealed to her that he desired this feast to be celebrated on the first Sunday after Easter, a day that would highlight the boundless mercy he offers to every soul. Faustina's mission was clear: she was to be the messenger of this great mercy, and she was to spread this devotion far and wide. Despite her growing mystical experiences and the weight of the mission entrusted to her, Sister Faustina's life remained marked by humility and simplicity. She continued her work within the convent, serving her sisters with quiet devotion. Yet, internally, she carried the immense burden of her visions and her deep union with Christ, which often led her to suffer alongside him for the salvation of souls. The visions of Christ were not the only spiritual phenomena Faustina experienced. She was also blessed with the stigmata, although it remained invisible to others. These sufferings united her even more deeply with the passion of Christ, and she offered them for the conversion of sinners. At times, she would even undergo mystical experiences of hell, where she witnessed the torments of souls who had rejected God's mercy. Sister Faustina's mission was not without its challenges. Many of those around her, including some of her superiors, were skeptical of her visions. They questioned whether these experiences were truly from God or the product of her imagination. Yet, Faustina's faith never wavered. She trusted in God's plan and remained obedient to her superiors, even when they doubted her. Her spiritual director, Father Sopoćko, however, believed in her and became her greatest supporter. Faustina's health began to deteriorate, and it became clear that she was suffering from tuberculosis. This illness caused her great physical pain, but she accepted it with patience and grace, offering her suffering for the salvation of souls. Even in her weakness, her union with Christ only deepened, and she continued to write in her diary, documenting the profound revelations of God's mercy that she received. Her diary, later published as Divine Mercy in My Soul, is now considered one of the great spiritual classics of the 20th century. In it, Faustina records the numerous encounters she had with Christ, her struggles, and her profound trust in God's mercy. The diary is not just a record of her mystical experiences, but a guide for souls seeking to understand and embrace the mercy of God in their own lives. The message of divine mercy, as revealed to Faustina, is one of the most powerful messages given to the modern world. In a time marked by war, despair, and a growing loss of faith, Christ's message to Faustina was one of hope. He wanted the world to know that no sin was too great to be forgiven, and that His mercy was available to every soul, no matter how lost or broken. One of the most beautiful aspects of Faustina's spirituality was her complete trust in God. This trust was not just a passive belief, but an active surrender to God's will in every aspect of her life. Whether in moments of joy or suffering, she placed her entire being in God's hands, confident that His mercy would sustain her. This trust is summed up in the simple but profound prayer that has become synonymous with the Divine Mercy devotion: Jesus, I trust in you. Faustina's life was also marked by a deep love for the Eucharist. She would often spend hours in adoration before the Blessed Sacrament, drawn to the mystery of Christ's presence in the Eucharist. It was in these moments of silent prayer that she experienced some of her most intimate encounters with Jesus, who revealed to her the depth of His love for mankind. As her health continued to decline, Sister Faustina spent her final days in a state of deep spiritual union with Christ. Despite her physical weakness, her soul was filled with a burning love for God and an intense desire to bring His mercy to the world. She knew her time on earth was drawing to a close, but she also knew that her mission was far from over. On October 5, 1938, at the age of 33, Sister Faustina passed away. Her death was peaceful, and those who were with her testified to the sense of serenity and holiness that filled the room. Though her earthly life had ended, the work she began was only just beginning. The message of divine mercy would spread far beyond the walls of her convent, touching the hearts of millions around the world. After her death, Faustina's cause for canonization was opened, and her diary began to circulate among the faithful. The message of divine mercy, which she had so faithfully lived and proclaimed, resonated deeply with people in a world ravaged by the horrors of war and sin. In 2000, Pope John Paul II, a fellow Pole and a great promoter of the Divine Mercy devotion, canonized her as Saint Maria Faustina Kowalska. In his homily on the day of her canonization, Pope John Paul II declared the Sunday after Easter as Divine Mercy Sunday, fulfilling the request made by Christ to Faustina so many years before. This feast day is now celebrated by Catholics around the world as a day to reflect on and embrace the infinite mercy of God. The life of Saint Faustina Kowalska is a testament to the power of God's grace and the profound impact that one soul can have when it surrenders completely to the will of God. Her story, though marked by suffering and trial, is ultimately a story of hope, hope that no soul is beyond the reach of God's mercy, and that His love is greater than any sin or sorrow we may face. Through her, the world has come to know the depth of Christ's desire to pour out His mercy on humanity. The Divine Mercy devotion, which includes the image, the chaplet, and the feast day, has become a source of healing and grace for countless souls. It reminds us that, in the words of Saint Faustina, the greater the sinner, the greater the right he has to my mercy. Faustina's teachings on mercy were not limited to her visions or writings alone. Before continuing with this video, I would like to invite you to reflect with us on our spiritual life as Catholics. Many times, in the hustle and bustle of everyday life, we set prayer aside, even though we know how important it is for our spiritual life. With this in mind, I have created an ebook called Prayer Routine for Catholics. In it, I share simple and effective ways to integrate prayer into your daily life, bringing more serenity and closeness to God. This material is a valuable companion for those who wish to live their faith more intensely and consistently. The link to the ebook is in the first comment of this video. Click the link and receive your ebook right now. May God bless you. She lived out the message of mercy in her daily life. Whether it was in the humble tasks of the convent or in her interactions with the other sisters, she embodied the mercy she preached. Her heart was always open to those in need, and she often prayed fervently for the conversion of sinners, offering up her sufferings for them. The Divine Mercy Chaplet, one of the key components of the devotion given to Faustina, is a prayer that emphasizes trust in God's mercy and offers intercession for the world. Jesus taught her this chaplet and asked her to spread its use, especially as a prayer for the dying. He promised that those who prayed it with faith would receive great graces at the hour of their death. Many miraculous events have been attributed to the Divine Mercy devotion. From physical healings to conversions, countless testimonies from around the world have been collected over the years. People have experienced God's mercy in profound ways, often during the most difficult moments of their lives, and they credit these miracles to the intercession of Saint Faustina and the power of the Divine Mercy Chaplet. One of the central themes of Faustina's message is the importance of trusting in God, even in the face of suffering and uncertainty. She wrote that the more a soul trusts in God, the more it will receive from His mercy. This trust is not just a passive reliance on God, but an active faith that seeks to surrender all anxieties, fears, and doubts to Him, knowing that His mercy is greater than any human weakness. Sister Faustina's relationship with her confessor, Blessed Michael Sopoćko, was crucial to the spread of the Divine Mercy devotion. Father Sopoćko was initially cautious about Faustina's visions but soon became convinced of their authenticity. He supported her in fulfilling Christ's request to spread the message of mercy, and it was through his efforts that the first Divine Mercy image was painted and displayed in public. Faustina's humility was one of her most striking virtues. Despite the extraordinary graces she received, she never considered herself worthy of such favors. She often referred to herself as a poor wretch in her diary and always credited God's mercy for any good that came from her life. This humility allowed her to accept both praise and criticism with the same calmness, trusting that everything was part of God's plan for her sanctification. Another important aspect of Faustina's spirituality was her deep devotion to the Blessed Mother. She frequently turned to Mary for guidance and strength, especially during times of trial. Faustina believed that Mary was the perfect model of trust in God's mercy, and she often prayed to her for help in surrendering more completely to God's will. The Divine Mercy devotion quickly spread after Faustina's death, especially during the difficult years of World War II. Poland, Faustina's homeland, was devastated by the war, and many people found hope and consolation in the message of divine mercy. It reminded them that, even in the midst of unspeakable suffering, God's love and mercy were present. Pope John Paul II, who had a deep personal devotion to divine mercy, played a pivotal role in the promotion of the devotion. As Archbishop of Krakow, he supported the cause for Faustina's canonization, and as Pope, he officially established Divine Mercy Sunday for the Universal Church. He often spoke about the importance of trusting in God's mercy, especially in the face of the modern world's challenges. One of the most remarkable aspects of Faustina's life is how God chose someone so simple and uneducated to bring such a powerful message to the world. She had no formal theological training, yet the truths she communicated about God's mercy have touched the hearts of theologians, scholars, and ordinary people alike. This is a testament to how God often chooses the humble and lowly to accomplish His greatest works. Faustina's diary also contains numerous references to her love for the angels, especially her guardian angel. She often felt the presence of her guardian angel by her side, guiding and protecting her, particularly during difficult moments. Her writings remind us of the constant companionship and protection we have from the angels, who are always ready to assist us in our journey toward God. Faustina's life was also marked by a deep awareness of the importance of suffering. She understood that suffering, when united with Christ, has immense redemptive value. Faustina frequently offered her own physical and spiritual sufferings for the salvation of souls, especially those most in need of God's mercy. This willingness to embrace suffering with love is a key aspect of her sanctity. As Faustina's health worsened, she became more and more united with the suffering Christ. She experienced both physical pain from her illness and spiritual suffering from the weight of the mission she had been given. Yet, through it all, she maintained her trust in God's mercy and continued to offer her sufferings for the salvation of others. Faustina's devotion to the Holy Eucharist was the source of her strength. She often wrote about how she longed to receive Jesus in the Eucharist, and how her soul was strengthened and consoled after each Holy Communion. Her love for the Eucharist was so intense that she would sometimes spend entire nights in adoration, keeping vigil before the Blessed Sacrament. The story of Faustina's canonization is itself a testament to the power of divine mercy. When her cause was first introduced, there was opposition from some within the Church, who were skeptical of her visions. However, through the perseverance of those who believed in the authenticity of her message, especially Father Sapacco and later Pope John Paul II, Faustina was eventually recognized as a saint. The Divine Mercy image, which was painted according to Faustina's vision, has become a symbol of God's mercy around the world. The image is often displayed in churches, homes, and hospitals, reminding people of the infinite love and mercy that Christ offers to each of us. The two rays of light emanating from Christ's heart in the image symbolize the blood and water that flowed from His side on the cross, representing the sacraments of the Eucharist and baptism. In her diary, Faustina recorded many instances where Christ expressed His desire to save even the most hardened sinners. He often told her that His mercy was greater than any sin and that no soul should ever despair of His forgiveness. This message of hope is one of the reasons why the Divine Mercy devotion has resonated so deeply with people who feel distant from God. Faustina also had a deep love for the priesthood and often prayed for priests, recognizing the important role they play in dispensing God's mercy through the sacraments. She frequently offered her prayers and sufferings for priests, asking God to strengthen them in their vocation and to make them channels of His mercy for the faithful. As the devotion to divine mercy continued to spread, many miracles were attributed to Saint Faustina's intercession. One notable case involved a woman who was healed from terminal cancer after praying the Divine Mercy Chaplet. Her doctors could not explain the sudden and complete remission of her illness, and she credited her recovery to Faustina's prayers. Faustina's life also serves as a reminder that God's mercy is not just a concept but a way of life. She lived every moment with an awareness of God's mercy, constantly seeking to reflect that mercy in her actions toward others. Whether it was through a kind word, a prayer, or a small act of charity, Faustina always sought to be a vessel of God's love for those around her. In her diary, Faustina wrote extensively about the importance of the sacrament of confession. She often went to confession herself and encouraged others to do the same, emphasizing that confession is one of the greatest channels of God's mercy. She believed that frequent confession was essential for growing in holiness and for maintaining a close relationship with God. One of the more challenging aspects of Faustina's mission was her call to intercede for souls who were in danger of damnation. She would often spend hours in prayer, asking God to have mercy on those who were far from Him. At times, she even felt the weight of these souls' despair, but she trusted that her prayers and sacrifices would bring them back to God's mercy. In addition to her mystical experiences, Faustina was also known for her deep love of nature. She often marveled at the beauty of God's creation and saw in it a reflection of His mercy. Whether it was a simple flower or a majestic sunrise, Faustina recognized that all of creation was a testament to the goodness and love of the Creator. Faustina's deep interior life was balanced by her active life within the convent. Despite her profound mystical experiences, she was always willing to help with the daily tasks of the convent, whether it was cooking, cleaning, or tending to the sick. Her humility and willingness to serve were a reflection of her desire to imitate Christ, who came not to be served, but to serve. One of the most important aspects of the Divine Mercy devotion is the hour of mercy, which takes place at 3 p.m., the hour of Christ's death. Jesus asked Faustina to honor this hour by praying for mercy, especially for sinners. He promised that, at this hour, the gates of His mercy were wide open and that He would pour out graces on those who asked for His mercy and trust. Faustina's love for the Blessed Virgin Mary was evident throughout her life. She often turned to Mary for guidance and intercession, especially in times of trial. She saw Mary as the perfect model of trust in God's mercy, and she frequently asked for Mary's help in surrendering more completely to God's will. As the devotion to divine mercy grew, so too did the need for more resources to help people understand and practice it. Many books, pamphlets, and other materials were published to help spread the message of divine mercy, including Faustina's diary, which has been translated into numerous languages and continues to inspire people around the world. One of the challenges that Faustina faced was the misunderstanding and skepticism from those around her. Many people, including some of her fellow sisters, found it difficult to believe that such extraordinary graces could be given to someone as simple and uneducated as Faustina. Yet, through it all, she remained faithful to her mission, trusting that God's mercy would prevail. Faustina's diary reveals the depth of her relationship with Jesus. She often described her conversations with Him in intimate terms, referring to Him as her bridegroom and beloved. These mystical encounters gave her the strength to continue her mission, even when it seemed impossible. Her union with Christ was the source of her strength and her joy. The spread of the Divine Mercy devotion has had a profound impact on the Church. It has brought many people back to the sacraments, especially confession, and has inspired countless acts of mercy and charity. The message of divine mercy has resonated deeply with people who feel lost or burdened by their sins, reminding them that no sin is too great for God's mercy. Faustina's legacy continues to inspire people around the world. Her life and writings have touched the hearts of millions, leading them to a deeper understanding of God's mercy and love. Her canonization in 2000 was a testament to the universal importance of her message, and her influence continues to grow as more people discover the power of divine mercy. One of the most moving aspects of Faustina's life was her complete trust in God, even in the face of suffering and uncertainty. She believed that God's mercy was greater than any trial or hardship, and that trusting in His will was the key to finding peace. This trust is something that we can all learn from, especially in our own lives when we face difficulties and challenges. Faustina's devotion to the Eucharist was central to her spirituality. She often wrote about how receiving Jesus in Holy Communion was the source of her strength and consolation. She believed that the Eucharist was the greatest expression of God's mercy, and she longed to receive it as often as possible. Her love for the Eucharist is an example for all of us to follow. Faustina's life also reminds us of the importance of prayer. She was constantly in prayer, whether it was the Divine Mercy Chaplet, the Rosary, or simply speaking to God in her heart. She understood that prayer was the key to growing in holiness and deepening her relationship with God. Her example encourages us to make prayer a central part of our own lives. The message of divine mercy is not just for individuals, but for the whole world. Faustina believed that God's mercy was the answer to the many problems facing the world, including war, poverty, and sin. She saw the Divine Mercy devotion as a way to bring healing and peace to the world, and she encouraged everyone to turn to God's mercy in times of trouble. Faustina's relationship with her spiritual director, Father Sapacco, was crucial to the spread of the Divine Mercy message. He believed in the authenticity of her visions and worked tirelessly to promote the devotion. His efforts were instrumental in the establishment of the Feast of Divine Mercy and the spread of the Divine Mercy image. One of the most powerful aspects of the Divine Mercy message is the promise that Jesus made to Faustina, that even the most hardened sinners could receive His mercy if they turned to Him with trust. This promise has brought hope to countless people who feel lost or unworthy of God's love. It reminds us that no matter how far we have strayed, God's mercy is always waiting for us. Faustina's life was also marked by her deep love for the Holy Spirit. She often prayed to the Holy Spirit for guidance and strength, especially in difficult moments. She believed that the Holy Spirit was the source of all grace and that by opening ourselves to His presence, we could become instruments of God's mercy in the world. As the devotion to divine mercy grew, it became clear that Faustina's mission was not just for her own time, but for all generations. Her message continues to inspire people today, reminding them of the importance of trusting in God's mercy and living lives of compassion and love. Faustina's legacy is also a reminder of the importance of perseverance. She faced many obstacles in her life, from her own illness to the skepticism of those around her. Yet, through it all, she remained faithful to her mission, trusting that God would bring about His plan in His own time. Faustina's writings on the mercy of God have had a profound impact on theology. Many theologians have studied her works and have been inspired by her deep understanding of God's love and forgiveness. Her writings continue to be a source of spiritual nourishment for those seeking to deepen their faith. One of the most beautiful aspects of Faustina's spirituality was her understanding of the dignity of every human soul. She believed that every person, no matter how sinful, was precious in the eyes of God and worthy of His mercy. This belief shaped her interactions with others and inspired her to pray constantly for the salvation of souls. Faustina's diary also contains many references to the importance of trust in God's providence. She often wrote about how she placed her entire life in God's hands, trusting that He would guide her in every situation. This trust gave her peace, even in the midst of great suffering. Faustina's life was also marked by her deep love for the Church. She saw the Church as the instrument through which God's mercy is dispensed to the world, especially through the sacraments. Her love for the Church was evident in her prayers for priests, bishops, and the Pope, whom she saw as shepherds of God's mercy. The message of divine mercy is particularly relevant in today's world, where so many people feel lost, broken, and in need of healing. Faustina's life reminds us that God's mercy is always available to us, no matter what we have done or how far we have strayed. Her message is one of hope and redemption for all. Faustina's deep love for God was evident in everything she did. Whether she was praying, working, or suffering, she did everything out of love for God and for souls. Her life was a testament to the power of love and mercy, and her example continues to inspire people to live lives of holiness. In the end, the life of Saint Faustina Kowalska is a story of love, God's infinite love for us, and our call to love Him in return. Her mission to spread the message of divine mercy was not just for her time, but for all time. Through her, we are reminded that God's mercy is always available to us, and that His love knows no bounds. May her life inspire us to trust in God's mercy and to spread that mercy to others. Saint Faustina, pray for us.